And also our Zoom page for the Dream Coalition. We will be doing a review of California ballot measures for 2020. So see you.
This man doing radio promos. What's going on here?
Yeah, right?
You know I'm gonna tease him. I have no choice. All right. So Facebook Live is up and running. Yeah, we're up and running there. So I'm going to, yep, we're live. All right. So I can shut this down now, go back to Zoom and get us moving. All right, Zoom, we're in. All right, and share this to my page, my wall, and yeah, Shepherd, tap in and join us. All right, yeah, California and ballot propositions.
Hey, Pastor Ballard, at least on mine, if you might want to speak up a little bit. Your voice was kind of low for me anyway.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But
All right. All right. Reclaim host. I'm the host now. Are we all? Good evening, everyone. It is now 6:03 p.m. and we are here to present a symposium workshop on the California ballot initiatives. We all know this is an integral election. Plenty of things that are coming up that are going to impact our daily lives here in the Coachella Valley. And so we have formed the D.R.E.A.M Coalition to help present these ballot initiatives to you. I'm Dr. Keithion Shepherd, and I'm joined with an esteemed panel. We have Mr. Troy Strange, Councilmember Wayman Furman, who is current council member of Indio, City of Indio. We have Ms. Debbie Franklin and Pastor James Baylard. Each will be presenting 3 of the propositions that are on our ballot. Okay, I understand that we have a highly contested presidential election that's coming, but beyond that, there are ballots that we have to pay attention to because they impact us here. What is the D.R.E.A.M Coalition? Who are we? We're a collective group of current and former elected officials and community leaders here in the Coachella Valley, Banning, and Beaumont area. We are focused on addressing social, political, and economic inequities in our communities. We have a mandate, we have a vision, we have a goal to develop resilience, empower, and build accountability management strategies. All right. So this is what we're here to do. This is what we are commissioned to do. All right. We have people watching on Facebook Live. We have others that are going to be logging in into Zoom. Each proposition, each presenter, you'll have time and an opportunity to address that presenter, ask questions concerning that proposition, but we're asking that you hold them until the end. If you feel fearful that you may not remember those questions, you can put them in the comment section or leave them in the chat. And at the end of the presentation, I will get back to you and allow you to ask those questions. Now, I will say this: if you are submitting a question, I'm going to need you to either address the presenter or address the proposition by number. That way I'll know where to direct that question to, all right? So if everyone is ready and all hearts and minds are clear, we are going to get ready and get started. Our first presenter is none other than Ms. Debbie Franklin. She's going to be reviewing propositions 14, 15, and 16. Ms. Franklin, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well, Pastor. Right. I'm going to briefly present Proposition 14, authorizes the sale of bonds to continue stem cell research. Proposition 14 is a constitutional.
If I can pause you really quick, I need you to share your screen. It's
yeah.
All right. It's okay. That's important, right?
Yes. Can you see it now? Okay.
Yes. And if you want to maximize it, you can. While she's working on that, she's preparing to maximize her screen. Let me give you a couple of key dates. On September 24th, the voter info guides will be mailed out to all registered voters. So if you're not registered to vote, make sure you get registered now, because on the 24th, the information package is going to be mailed out to you. Okay, Ms. Franklin, you're ready.
Okay, Proposition 14 authorizes the sale of bonds to continue stem cell research. Proposition 14 is a constitutional statute that would allow the state of California to continue funding stem cell and other medical research. A yes vote on this measure means the state could sell $5.5 billion in general obligation bonds, primarily for stem cell research and the development of new medical research in California. A no vote means the state could not sell the $5.5 billion. Support for Proposition 14 has a slew of people supporting it. They also state in favor of it that Proposition 14 continues funding to develop treatments and scientific breakthroughs for California patients with cancer, diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, HIV and AIDS, ALS, MS, stem cell disease, sickle cell disease, and a host of other diseases like COVID-19, and it is supported by over 70 patient advocate organizations. Those that oppose Proposition 14 argue that 7.8 billion is a huge sum during this time of economic crisis, and proponents are making empty promises about revenues and jobs. The fiscal impact statement includes the principal of 5.5 billion, the interest of 2.3 billion, total estimated cost is 7.8 billion, with payments over 30 years of $260 million. The source of payments is primarily the general fund tax revenue. Proposition 15 increases funding sources for public schools, community college, and local governments by changing tax assessment of commercial and industrial property. A yes vote supports the constitutional amendment to require commercial and industrial properties, except those zoned as commercial agriculture, to be taxed on their market value rather than the purchase price. A no vote opposes this constitutional amendment and allows you to still be taxed according to purchase price with annual increases equal to the rate of inflation or 2%, whichever is lower. And I'm going to try to speed up my presentation there. Okay. And support for Proposition 15 is a partial list of Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, that are both United States Senators, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, US Senators, Karen Bass and Connie Leyva. And the organizations are the California Democratic Party, the Green Party of California, the ALCU, and the League of California Voters. Arguments in favor of state that, give me a moment there. We're really talking about a fraction of top corporations in the state that have benefited for decades from egregiously low property tax rates or assessments from the 1970s. Opposition to Proposition 15 are a couple of people, and they say that we're going to have the largest tax increase in California history at exactly the wrong time in our economy to be able to afford it. Fiscal impact increased property taxes on commercial properties worth more than $3 million, providing 6.5 to 11.5 billion in new funding to local governments and schools. Now we'll go to Proposition 16, allows diversity as a factor in public employment, education, and contracting decisions. A yes vote to this constitutional amendment to repeal Proposition 209, which we voted in 1996, which stated the government and public institutions cannot discriminate against or grant preferential treatment to persons on the basis of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin, and public employment, public education, and public contracting. A no vote continues Proposition 209. Supporters include a part of a partial list are Dianne Feinstein and Kamala Harris, Karen Bass, and sorry about that. The arguments in favor of it have been stated by State Senator Stephen Bradford. Says, I know about discrimination. I live it every day. We live it in this building. Quit lying to yourselves and saying race is not a factor. The bedrock of who we are in this country is based on race. Opposition for Proposition 16 include Melissa Melendrez, the state senator, and D.R.E.A.M, the former United States representative. And his statement is given by the Orange County Register, which states that as ultimately, we don't think the case has been made for scrapping Proposition 209 and the fundamental principle of treating all people on equal terms. The fiscal impact, there's no fiscal impact on state or local entities because the measure does not require any change to current policies or programs. Campaign finance has in support of it is 3.2 million and opposition is 122,000. And the major donor has been yes on 16, Opportunity for All Coalition Committee, and they have contributed 3.1 million. That concludes my presentation, and I'm turning it back over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Franklin. And initially, we were going to leave. Well, you know what? No, we will do that. We will do that. There's two questions that are in the chat for you, Ms. Franklin, but we're going to get to see them at the end of the presentation. All right. So our next presenter is Mr. Troy Strange. Mr. Strange is going to be reviewing Proposition 17, 18, and 19. If you are on social media and you are watching right now, I'm going to ask that you share this to everyone in your network. This concerns all of us, okay? Mr. Strange is going to be covering Proposition 17, 18, and 19. Mr. Strange, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
All right, all right. I'm getting ready to transfer the host over to you.
All right, I appreciate it.
Record screen. All right, Mr. Strange, it is now on you. We're grateful to have you with us. The floor is now yours, sir.
All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. As it stated, I'm Troy Strange, and I will be presenting on Proposition 17, 18, and 19. Proposition 17 restores the right to vote to people who have been convicted of felonies and are on parole. A yes vote means that people who are on parole will be allowed to vote as well as run for elected offices if they have not been convicted of a perjury or bribery. A no vote means that they will not be allowed to vote. Excuse me. The next slide is a list of elected officials who support Proposition 17, most notably Kamala Harris, U.S. Senator, and Alex Padilla, Secretary of State. The ACLU of California and the League of Women Voters of California are organizations who support this proposition. The argument essentially is when people feel that they are valued members of their community, they are less likely to return to prison. Jim Nielsen, a Republican state senator, is the only listed official who opposes Proposition 17. Essentially, he argues that those who commit crimes, particularly the heinous crimes, part of their sentence is to complete the parole period. They need to first regain the full trust of society at large prior to being allowed to participate as a full citizen. The next slide addresses the fiscal impacts. The impacts is that it will increase annual county costs in the hundreds of thousands of dollars statewide for voter registration and ballot materials. Also, there are one-time state costs, likely in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to update voter registration and systems. As for campaign finance, there has been no support in contributions for or against this proposition. Now we're moving on to Proposition 18. It's the primary voting for 17-year-olds amendment 2020. A yes vote allows 17-year-olds who will be 18 at the time of the next general election to vote in primary elections and special elections. A no vote means that they will not be allowed to vote in these elections. So this slide shows the support. There's Democratic Assemblymember Kevin Mullen and Secretary of State Alex Padilla who support this proposition. The essential argument is that without full exposure to the election process, they are unable to submit their most educated vote in the general election. This would ensure that a greater number of citizens voting in the general election have the resources and the experience they need to provide the vote that best matches their own values. As far as opposition, there are no elected officials who oppose it. However, the essential argument states they are almost all still living at home under the strong influence of their parents. This is not conducive to independent thought and voting without undue pressure from their immediate superiors, such as their parents and teachers. The fiscal impact, I think I done went ahead a slide, I'm sorry. Yeah, the fiscal impact, it increases county costs, likely between several hundreds of thousands of dollars and $1 million every 2 years to send the processed voting materials to eligible registered 17-year-olds. Also, it increases one-time cost to the state in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to update existing voter registration systems. As for campaign finance, there are no contributions for or against this proposition. The next proposition is Proposition 19, which is the property tax transfers, exemptions, and revenue for wildfire agencies, counties, amendment 2020. Proposition 19 limits property tax increases on primary residences for seniors, people with severe disabilities, families, wildfire, and natural disaster victims. It also affects property inherited by children or grandchildren that are not primary residences or farms if the value of the property exceeds the taxable value by more than $1 million. For example, if you inherit a home that was purchased in 1970 for $100,000 and it is currently valued at $1.1 million or more, your property will be subject to a tax increase. This slide here demonstrates what a yes vote means. A yes vote will allow eligible homeowners to transfer their tax assessments to more expensive homes anywhere within the state. It will increase the number of times that eligible homeowners can transfer their tax assessments from 1 to 3 in their lifetime. Next, it will require that inherited homes not used as principal residences or farms be reassessed at market value when transferred. And lastly, it will allocate additional revenue resulting in the ballot measure to wildfire agencies and counties. A no vote will continue the current tax legislation as such. Eligible homeowners can only transfer their tax assessments within their counties, and the homes of lesser or equal value. Eligible homeowners can only transfer their tax assessments one time in their lifetime. And lastly, tax assessments will not increase on any inherited homes that are transferred from parent to child or grandparent to grandchild. All right, this next slide is in support of this proposition. The argument is presented by Yes on 19 campaign, which states that limiting property taxes for seniors, people with disabilities, wildfire victims, because they are often forced to move to health due to health issues and disasters. As a result, they are faced with increased tax liabilities at the same time as they can least afford it. In addition, it closes tax loopholes exploited by wealthy on second homes and investment properties, but protects family homes inherited by children so they can afford to live in the home without sudden tax increases. It also provides a tax relief for California farms and provides revenue to fight wildfires. As for the opposing argument, the proposition, largely backed by real estate special interests, eliminates the loophole, but it creates a bigger problem by allowing wealthy homeowners to continue reaping the benefits of Prop 13 from 1978. Plus, revenue from property taxes should not be automatically earmarked for fire suppression. The fiscal impact includes local governments and schools could gain tens of millions of dollars of property tax revenue per year. These gains could grow over time to a few hundred million per year. Most of the new state revenue would be spent on fire protection. Oh, excuse me. As for campaign finance, there have been over $19 million contributed to support this proposition and no contributions that are opposing it. The major donors include the California Professional Firefighters, who've contributed $100,000, California Association of Realtors, who have contributed $15 million, and National Association of Realtors, who have contributed $2.8 million for a total of $17.9 million. And this concludes my presentation and be available for questions at the conclusion of the other presentations. Thank you.
Mr. Strange, thank you so much for your presentation. As we get ready to transition over to Pastor James Ballot, I want to give you some key dates really quickly. On September 24th, like I said already, there's the voter info guide is mailed to registered voters. So if you have not registered to vote, you need to do so immediately, okay? And then on the 5th of October, ballots are mailed, okay? And then on October 19th is their final day to register. And then November 3rd is our National Voting Day. There'll be 130 voter assistance centers in Riverside County with 10 staff members in each one of them, one for every 15,000 residents. Additionally, there'll be 80 drop-off locations in the county where people can drop off their ballots, one for every 10,000 residents. And there'll be 6 marking devices at each voter assistance site. Okay, so if you continue to follow this page, like the Dreams page or on Facebook, social media, you'll be able to see all of those voting locations. We'll make sure that they're posted throughout the next couple of weeks, all right? So without further ado, Pastor James Ballot is coming with propositions 20, 21, and 22. Pastor Ballot, how are you, sir?
Doing good. How you doing, Pastor Shepherd?
I'm wonderful, I'm wonderful. I now made you the host and the floor is yours, sir.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It's Pastor Ballot here from First Community Baptist Church in Desert Hot Springs. I will be giving a PowerPoint presentation on proposition 20, 21, and 22.
There we go.
Okay, proposition 20 restricts parole for nonviolent offenders, authorized felony for certain offenses currently treated only as misdemeanors in initiative status. People who commit certain thefts-related crimes, such as repeated shoplifting, could receive increased penalties, such as longer jail terms. In addition, additional factors would be considered for the state's process for releasing certain inmates from prison early. Law enforcement would be required to collect DNA samples from adults convicted of certain misdemeanors. To vote no on this proposition, the penalty for people who commit certain theft-related crime would not be increased. There would be no change to the state's process for releasing certain inmates from prison early. Law enforcement officers or environment would continue to be required to collect DNA samples from adults only if they are arrested for felonies or required to register as sex offenders. Proposition 21 expands local government authorities to enact rent control on residential property initiative status. State law would allow, if you vote yes, cities and counties to apply more kinds of rent control to more properties than under the current law. If you vote no on Proposition 21, state law would maintain current limits on rent control laws. Cities and counties may apply. And finally, Proposition 22 changes employment classification rules for application-based transportation and delivery drivers initiative statute. If you vote yes on Proposition 22, the application-based rideshare and delivery companies could hire drivers as independent contractors. Drivers could decide when, where, and how much to work, but would not get standard benefits and protection that business must provide employees. If you vote no on Proposition 22, the application-based rideshare and delivery company will have to hire drivers as employees if the courts say that a recent state law makes drivers employees. And lastly, drivers would have to less choice about when, where, and how much to work, but would get standard benefits and protection that businesses must provide employees. And that concludes my presentation on Propositions 20, 21, and 22. If you have any questions, you can direct them to our host, and then he will forward it on to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Baylor. As previously stated, we have 2 questions in the queue right now. If you have any questions that you need answered, I'll ask you to put them in the chat or leave them on Facebook, and make sure that you either reference the presenter or the proposition so I'll know who they go to. But there's 2 that we have right now. Additionally, oh, there it goes, yeah. Additionally, if you will please just go and like and follow our Facebook page, we'll be able to keep you up to date on voter initiatives and things that are happening as we get closer to the election date. There's a list that just went out yesterday of all the polling places here in Riverside County. We can get that posted on there as well. You'll be able to search for your polling place by your zip code on there as well. All right. So without further ado, our final presenter is Councilmember Wayman Furman. He's from the city of Indio, and he's coming to review propositions 23, 24, and 25. Councilmember Furman, how are you, sir?
How you doing? Good evening.
Y'all look at him, he's smiling already. You can tell he does this for a living. All right, Councilmember Furman, the floor is yours, sir.
Let me share my screen, but while that's going up, I just want to share while I'm smiling, because I finally got to wear a tie again, you know, and I had a little trouble trying to tie it again. I forgot how to tie it again, but I got it. You know, myself and Pastor Shepard, we go back to high school days, and we also ran Junior Olympics together in track. I know we some pretty big boys now, but we did run track. And also, I'm not used to being the anchor leg. That's usually my cousin Jerome, but I'll take it home, and then we'll have questions at the end. I also have my information at the end of my slide. So if you want to contact me for anything that I present, and also anything that's going on in the community, because that's what we want to do. We want to be a resource for the community, things going on. But this is some important stuff. Sometimes we go out and vote, and we don't read the guide, or sometimes we just vote because we feel that's the right thing to do without doing the research. So I also have some links and addresses on towards the end of my presentation where you can get some of this information. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start. I will be presenting 2020 ballot measures for California Propositions 23, 24, and 25. 23 is Dialysis Clinic Requirements Initiative. And I will give you the yes and no vote, and I will give you also a summary of what this is. And what this initiative intentions is to establish staffing requirements and also state requirements for dialysis clinics. And, you know, that's why I say these things are important. These are healthcare issues that folks depend on these things. So this is some important stuff. So if you have questions, like it was mentioned earlier, please submit them and I'll get to you. Or if I can't get the answer for you, we'll find it, you know. So California Proposition 23, Dialysis Clinic requirement initiatives. A yes vote supports this ballot initiative to require chronic dialysis clinics to have an on-site physician while patients are being treated, report data on dialysis-related infections, obtain consent from state health clinic departments before closing a clinic, and not discriminate against patients based on the source of payment or care. And obviously, a no vote opposes this ballot initiative to require chronic dialysis clinics to have an on-site physician while patients are being treated, report data on dialysis-related infections, obtain consent from state health department before closing a clinic, and not discriminate against patients based on the source of payment for care. So, in summary, this initiative has these requirements that they're trying to impose, and that would be having a physician on site while folks are receiving dialysis treatment. And reason being, some of these clinics are private; they're not state run, so they're private. So some do not have physicians on site, and so this would also require private entities to report data to NHSN, which is a healthcare safety network, and also require the principal officer of the clinic to certify under the penalty of perjury that he or she is satisfied after review that they submitted a report and accurate and complete. So that is submitting that data to the state, and also provide written notice to the state health department and obtain consent from state health department before closing dialysis clinics. And in support of this, we have the SEIU, which is a union. We have United Healthcare Workers of California for kidney dialysis patient protection. In opposition, we have Stop Dangerous Costly Dialysis proposition sponsored by dialysis providers, nurses, DaVita Incorporated, Francis, and Medical Care, and California Medical Association of California, and also NAACP State Conference. Fiscal impact will be state and local healthcare costs in the low tens of millions of dollars annually, resulting from increased dialysis treatment costs. And that would probably be having a doctor on duty when these treatments are being performed. So moving right along to California Proposition 24. This is Consumer Personal Information Law and an Agency Initiative. A yes vote on this supports this ballot initiative to expand the state's consumer data privacy laws, including provisions to allow consumers to direct businesses not to share their personal information, remove the time period in which businesses can fix violations before being penalized, and create a privacy protection agency to enforce the state's consumer data privacy laws. And I want to continue on this, but just to give an overview, the state of California currently does have strong privacy laws as it pertains to consumers. Now, what this would do, this would strengthen it and also establish a state agency to oversee it. And I'm going to skip over to the fiscal impact because I think this is where this is important. And you can also get more information as it pertains to some of the laws and initiatives that this proposition would bring on to the consumers. But fiscal impact would be approximately annual cost of roughly $10 million for a new state agency to regulate new laws. And the impact is unknown on state and local revenues. So being that it hasn't been established yet, there's no estimate on revenue. So we're going to move along to California Proposition 25. And this one is very, I'm going to try to go in depth, but I'm going to try to keep it simplified because this one could get a little tricky. So this one is California Proposition 25. This would replace the cash bail with the risk assessment referendum is the ballot in California as veto referendum. And what that means is we already have in place California State Bill 10. And so what this would do with a yes vote is uphold the contested legislation, State Bill 10, which would replace cash bail for risk assessments for detained suspects awaiting trials. And a no to would repeal this SB 10. And so in summary, The state of California currently right now has SB 10 in place. And what that does, it's a risk assessment if someone is arrested in the state of California, and that risk assessment will determine if they will be released with bond due to their high risk, medium, or low risk. And so, or they will have to stay in custody pending their trial. And before SB 10, folks would be given a bail. And if they were able to post bail, they were released pending their trial, right? And if they were not able to post bail, they would stay in custody until their court case. So what this Proposition 25 would do, it would uphold what we have now, which is a risk assessment. And so that will be determined based on their crime, and that would determine if they're going to be released from custody. In support of this, we have a Coalition for Justice Reform and labor organizations. In opposition, we have Stop the Unfair, Safe, Costly Ballot proposition sponsored by American Bail Coalition. So moving along, I did put ballotpedia.com and the Secretary of State addresses where some of this information can be found. There's also some things on Facebook where you can find some information on this. And also, this is my contact information, my email, and my phone number if you wish to speak to me about the initiatives I presented or things going on in the community, and also things going on in the city of Indio and the Coachella Valley. And like I said, if I don't have the answer, we'll find it together. So that will conclude my presentation, Pastor Shepard, and I'm going to stop that and go back over to you.
All right, Mr. Furman, thank you so much for your presentation. We now have a couple of questions to need to be answered, or they need to be answered. First question, and I'm going to field it. I'm just going to give them to you as I see them on my screen as I'm scrolling. There's three of them to be exact. Let me pull them back up. Okay, Proposition 25, Mr. Furman. Would this put more criminals on the streets, and will they skip trials as a result of this proposition?
Well, from my perspective, this is what I would say. Arrested in our country, you're innocent until proven guilty, correct? So we can all agree that some crimes are more heinous than others, and some folks should not be on the street. So a risk assessment will determine that, but also on the other coin, some folks may be arrested or detained for a lower level crime, and they will be taken into custody and they may not be able to post bond. And what this is attending to do is some folks on the lower level who have jobs, who have families, who have made a mistake, and who are able to still function in our society until their trial. This is intended to do. So I would say do your research on this one, because it's very important as it pertains to the bail system, and also folks who are arrested for lower level crimes, and that is determined by the court of law. So that's what this ballot initiative does. I hope that simplifies it and gives you an answer.
So are you saying each individual case will be subject to a risk assessment to determine if that person would be released into the streets?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you, sir. Next question, Proposition 16, Ms. Franklin, has there been a method to make this happen, and are we reversing discrimination?
Well, thank you for your question, Pastor, and I know it's coming from the audience. There is an what do I want to say? There are people who say that Proposition 209 has not met the requirements, because Proposition 209 was to say that everyone was to be treated equally. And we have seen the effects of that throughout the years. So there is no way to say that it happens, and Proposition 209 is not in effect in all states. So it just depends on the situation for each individual, whether or not it is everyone's being treated equally or they're not. And they can look back through their own experiences to see whether or not it's actually done that job.
All right. Was there a follow-up
That answers
question?
that question.
Yeah. Thank you for your answer. I'm scrolling up to the next one because there was one more, and I believe it was from Ms. Franklin. If this screen will let me scroll up here. Yes. Okay. Prop 15, Ms. Franklin. Will this be for all schools, and will the commercial tax increase my personal taxes? Someone asked.
No, supposedly you have to have a business that is worth over $3 million to be taxed. And it's not only your business, but your business equipment. Unless you have agricultural lands as part of it, then that would be exempt. But no, for the average resident, it will not affect the residents. For the local schools, it's a little tricky because it says the schools would get money based on the number of students that are actually in the schools. So that may be a little skewed.
All right. Thank you so much. That is the final question that we have. Before I close this out, I'm going to ask if there's any closing remarks. Let's just try, when you've been in ministry like I am long enough, you understand that at funerals, and you ask people for 2-minute remarks, they try to go over those 2 minutes. So I'm going to ask you all to keep it at 2 minutes. And like at every memorial service that I do, at 2 minutes, if you're still talking, I'm going to come stand next to you. And when I stand next to you, that means it's time for you to go and have a seat. So my way to stand next to you virtually is to mute your microphone. All right, just kidding. All right, so is there anyone that has any closing remarks about what was presented tonight?
Well, no, Pastor, I do wanted to add for Proposition 15, that is partially a repeal of Proposition 13. And those that are opposing it are saying this is just the first step to repealing Proposition 13, which does have to do with private homeowner taxes.
Anyone else? Yes, Councilmember Furman wants to discuss Census 2020. I forgot about that. Thank you.
Do I have the last 15 minutes, or are you going to cut me?
My brother, you got the last 2 before the deacon come and stand next to you.
No, I just want to express the importance of Census 2020 as it pertains to our community. Right now, there's a lot going on in our community, and a lot of it is surrounded by representation of folks in our communities, and also budgeting and funding. And as a council member in the city, I understand the struggles of this. At the same time, we have to come together to go find those monies for our communities and work together with our local elected officials to find those funds and allocate them in the right places. And what Census 2020 does, it is a population count, and it will determine the funding for our communities, which is very, very important. This is only done every 10 years. And just look at the community that you lived in, how it's changed the last 10 years. Look at our country, how it's changed the last year as it pertains to social and economic issues and housing and healthcare and representation in our communities. So it only takes 2 to 5 minutes. It's a couple of questions about your household. And I want to stress this information because there's a lot of misinformation that goes out over the years about census and collecting people's personal information. But what this does, this is going to allocate funding for our communities. So important. You could do this over the telephone. You can also do this online. We've also gotten paperwork in the mail. And if you have not done it, you have workers going to certain communities, coming to your door actually, and asking you to fill this out. So this is very important. So if you go on the internet, you could just Google Census 2020 and it will direct you straight to there in your community. You can look at the percentages in your community, and this is going to determine how much funding you get. And we only have until September 30th to complete this. As you know, it was cut short by the president. So we need to jump on this as soon as possible. And also, please be safe out there. Follow the guidelines as it pertains to COVID-19. There's a lot of folks getting sick over this, and we want to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. And we also want to keep our folks safe. We want We do not want to inundate our healthcare system with folks in the hospital. And as we begin to open, we don't just want to begin to open and start our church services and put our kids in school, but we want to do all these things safely. And we need to all be on the same page. And this is disproportionately affected minority communities. So we really need to pay attention to this if you look at the demographic of our communities. So with that being said, my email is waymanfurman@gmail.com. And you can contact me anytime and I'll get back to you. And like I said, if I don't have the answer, I will call Troy Strange and he'll find it for you. And so thank you guys, and thank you for joining us.
All right, and so it should be noted that we had a comment that came in. I'm going to get to you right now, Mr. Strange. September 30th is the last day to be counted for the census, and you all, I know in some of our communities in the Coachella Valley, especially, we're asking and we're wondering why certain restaurants and retail and all these opportunities are not coming to our cities. Well, a lot of times they base that off of income, and they also base it off of total population. And so we can help alleviate that problem by doing our part. We may not be able to do anything about income, but we can do something about total population. So that comes in from us being counted in the census. So please don't ignore that paperwork. Don't ignore this opportunity. Like you said, this comes across every 10 years, you said? Yeah, so every 10 years. So what we do now will help us, and the census will help us for the next decade. So we really need to be counted. Mr. Strange, and then I'm going to come around to Mr. Ballot. And I think that's all four of us. Yes, all four of you. Mr. Strange, please.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Shepard. I just want to reiterate that although we're in a very important national election for presidency, I can't stress strongly enough that the state and local initiatives are extremely important for you to pay attention to, because they're going to have a direct and immediate impact on you. So we thought it was very important that we try to share this information to clarify any questions or concerns you may have so that you can make the right decision as it relates to you and your family. I just want to say again that the local, state, and regional initiatives are important. So please pay attention to those and make the right choice for you and your family and your community. And that's all I have at this time, and thank you.
All right. Pastor Ballot, any closing remarks from you, sir?
We just want to make sure that those who are watching on live Facebook and those who might be on Zoom, to encourage everyone to get out and vote, and to definitely exercise your constitutional right. This is a very, very important election period. And so we just want to make sure that our voices are heard. There's a variety of different propositions that are being offered. And we ask that you prayerfully and intellectually listen to what has been shared with you this evening, and make whatever decision that you're going to make. But the most important thing is to get out and vote.
I couldn't say that any better. You don't vote. I have this saying: if you don't vote, shut your mouth. All right. So if we're not happy with what's going on, we have an opportunity to change it. And if you're just complaining and not voting in Houston, we have a problem. All right. So let me give you a brief recap of who we are and why we are here. This is the Dreams Coalition. We came together a little shy of 6 or 7 months ago. Dreams is a collective group of current and former elected officials and community leaders in the Coachella Valley, Banning, and Beaumont area. We are focused on addressing social, political, and economic inequities in our communities. All right, we have a goal. Our goal is to develop resilience and to empower and to build and help facilitate accountable management strategies. All right, so that was part of what we did tonight. And I need it to be said that this is a nonpartisan approach to all of these propositions. We're not telling you which way to vote. We're just informing you on what these propositions mean, because oftentimes what happens, we go to the polls and we vote for president and we kind of overlook all those other things. And so tonight we wanted to make sure that you are armed and equipped with knowledge and information on what these measures and these propositions actually mean. Finally, I'm going to give you these dates before we close out. On the 24th of this month, the voter information guide is mailed to all registered voters. So if you're not registered, you won't receive a voter guide. So you need to get registered. October 5th, ballots will be mailed. All right, October 19th is the last day to register. Subsequently, September 30th, I'm sorry, I overlooked that date. That's the last day to be counted in the census, and that's extremely important. And then November 3rd is National Voting Day. All right. If you follow the Dreams page on Facebook, we're going to list all the polling places that are in your area. We're going to list them all for the county. And as it pertains to those, there'll be 130 voter assistance centers in Riverside County with 10 staff members in each one of them, one for every 15,000 residents. And then there'll be 80 drop-off locations, and there'll be 6 marking devices at each voter assistance site. Okay, so all the protocols are in place for us to make sure that we get out and we vote. And I really appreciate what Pastor Ballard just said, that it's important that we do get out and vote this time around. Okay, so if you have any questions or you have any comments that you need to be answered, you can reach us on the Dream page. Councilman Furman has listed his email address. And what we'll do is within the next 24 hours, we'll list every presenter's email address down there so you can contact them directly. With that being said, there are not any comments on the Facebook page, I believe. Let me just check one more time because I don't want to leave anybody out. No comments there. Okay, so, oh no, I'm sorry. There is one. Will a copy of the PowerPoint presentation presented this evening be available for access afterwards for reference for those that may have missed it? Yes, it will be. This is what's going to happen. This video will stay on this Dreams page. We'll pin it to the top so you can just come and see it directly. It'll also be posted on YouTube. So there'll be a YouTube link provided, I would say within 45 minutes, and you'll be able to access this presentation and all the PowerPoint information on YouTube at your leisure. We're going to ask that you share to as many people as you possibly can in your network. Okay, there are so many people that probably didn't know this happened tonight. And furthermore, they're clueless about all these propositions. And I can be completely honest with you. About 8 years ago, we went into a polling place and we just wanted to vote for president. And there was a whole bunch of propositions that I just was clueless about, all right? So we're trying to bridge that gap. So please share this information to everyone. You're so welcome this home. So with that being said, we wish you all a great evening. And we want to see you at the polls. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. We will make sure that we get you all the answers that you have. I want to thank all of our presenters, Mr. Troy Strange, Pastor James Ballard, Ms. Debbie Franklin, and Councilman Furman. Thank you all for your time, and we'll see you all next time. All right, have a good evening.
Are we staying on?
Yes, we can. I'm going to shut down the Facebook page right now, or stop the share. Stop recording there. Stop recording.